I fell in love with a Korean Mafia boss. His enemies came for me. I'm staring at a USB drive right now. Inside it is everything. Bank accounts, wire transfers, names of people I've seen on the news, recordings of conversations that were never supposed to exist, evidence that could take down an entire criminal empire. The man who gave it to me, he's the one who built that empire. And he was the first person I ever loved. He left me a note. Just one line. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking you to decide what happens next. Now hit that subscribe button while you watch. This is the story of how I got here.
The first time Hannah met June, she thought he was really bad at hiding. She was working at a café in Itaewon, one of those places that serves overpriced lattes to expats who miss home and students who can't afford to miss home but come anyway. She'd moved to Seoul 6 months earlier for a translation program. She was supposed to be building a career, learning Korean, becoming the kind of person who had their life figured out. Instead, she was making coffee for people who didn't look at her when they ordered. Except for June. He came in every Tuesday and Thursday at exactly 4:17 p.m. Not 4:15. Not 4:20. Always 4:17. He ordered a flat white with oat milk, 2 shots of espresso, and a pump of vanilla syrup. Extra hot. He never drank more than half. And here's the thing. He wasn't smooth about it. He wasn't the mysterious stranger sitting in the corner, all brooding and dangerous. He was anxious. He sat with his back to the door, hunched over his phone, typing like he just remembered 12 things he was supposed to do yesterday. He tipped in exact change. Not because he was cheap, because he counted it out with the kind of focus that meant he was using math to avoid thinking about something else. Hannah noticed him because he was trying so hard to be invisible that he became the most noticeable person in the room. The first time she spoke to him wasn't romantic. It was a Tuesday. He'd left his wallet on the table. She grabbed it and chased him down the block, waving it above her head like an idiot. When she finally caught up, out of breath and probably sweaty, he turned around and looked at her like she just ruined his entire day. "You forgot this," she said, holding out the wallet. He stared at it, then at her, then back at the wallet. "How long have you been following me?" She blinked. "What? I wasn't. You dropped this." "Did I?" "Yes." "Are you sure?" She looked at the wallet in her hand, then back at him. "Are you seriously suggesting I stole your wallet just so I could return it to you?" He considered this. "Maybe. That's insane." "Is it?" He took the wallet, flipped it open, checked inside. Everything was still there. He looked almost disappointed. She crossed her arms. "You're welcome, by the way. I didn't say thank you. I noticed." He slipped the wallet into his jacket. For a second, he just stood there, like he was deciding whether to say something or walk away. Finally, "Do you always chase strangers down the street?" "Only the ones who forget their wallets." "That's a bad habit. So is not saying thank you." He almost smiled. Almost. Then he turned and walked away. Hannah stood there, stunned, until she realized she was still holding her breath. The second time Hannah saw him, 3 days later, he came in at 4:17 p.m. and ordered the same drink. When she brought it to his table, he looked up and said, "You're still here. I work here, right?" He nodded slowly. "That makes sense." She set the cup down. "Your wallet secure today?" "I don't know. You haven't tried to steal it yet. Give me time." This time June did smile. It was small, barely there, but it counted. The third time Hannah saw June, he was standing outside her apartment building at 11 p.m., soaking wet. She'd just gotten home from her night class, Introduction to Legal Translation, which was exactly as boring as it sounded. She was halfway up the stairs when she saw him standing under the broken streetlight, rain dripping off his jacket like he'd been standing there for a while. Hannah stopped. "Are you following me?" June looked up. "No." "Then why are you outside my building?" I needed somewhere quiet. So you came to my building? I didn't know it was yours. She stared at him. His hair was plastered to his forehead. His shoes were soaked through. He looked miserable. How long have you been out here? She asked. I don't know. An hour? Maybe 2. It's been raining for 3 hours. Has it? June glanced up at the sky, like he was just noticing. I thought it felt wet. Hannah should have walked away. She should have called someone. She should have done literally anything other than what she did next. She unlocked the door. Come on. June didn't move. I can't. You'll get pneumonia. I've had worse. That's not reassuring. June looked at her for a long time. Then, quietly, he said, I sent my cousin to collect a debt last year. He didn't come back. I didn't go looking for him. Hannah felt something cold settle in her stomach. Not fear. Something else. Something that felt like standing at the edge of a cliff and realizing you'd already taken a step forward. She held the door open. Come inside or don't. But I'm not leaving this open all night. For a moment she thought he'd leave. Then, slowly, he walked up the stairs and stepped inside. He didn't say thank you. Hannah hadn't expected him to. June sat on her couch for 2 hours that night. He didn't touch her. Didn't ask for anything. He just sat there, staring at the wall, while Hannah pretended to grade translations at the kitchen table. Around 1 a.m. he finally spoke. I thought about leaving once. 3 years ago. I got as far as the airport. Then I realized I have no idea who I'd be without this. And that scared me more than staying. Hannah looked up from her work. Without what? Everything. He didn't elaborate. Hannah didn't push. At 1:30 he stood up. Thank you. For what? For not asking questions. He left. Hannah locked the door behind him and stood there for a long time, wondering what she'd just let into her life. Over the next 3 months, June showed up at random times. Never predictable. Never announced. He'd appear at the cafe during her shift and sit in the corner, not talking, just there. He'd text her at 2 a.m. with single-word messages. Awake. Always a question. Never a demand. They didn't date in any normal sense. They existed in the spaces between normal. Late-night walks through empty streets. Convenience store meals at 4 a.m. Conversations that started in the middle and ended before they reached any conclusion. Hannah learned things about him in fragments. He had a scar on his left hand from a kitchen accident when he was 12. He spoke 3 languages but claimed he wasn't good at any of them. He remembered everything she said, even throwaway comments she'd forgotten 5 minutes later. But he never talked about his work. Never explained where he went when he disappeared for days. Never introduced her to anyone from his life. And Hannah told herself that was fine. She told herself she didn't need to know everything. That some mystery was okay. That this strange, fractured connection was enough. Then one Tuesday, a woman approached Hannah at the cafe. She was older, maybe 50, wearing an expensive coat and carrying a handbag that probably cost more than Hannah's rent. She ordered an Americano and waited until Hannah brought it to her table. You're the girl who's been seeing June, the woman said. Not a question. Hannah's hands went cold. I don't know what you're talking about. The woman smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Yes, you do. And I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to warn you. I don't need warnings from strangers. You do when you're dating someone like him. The woman leaned forward. Do you know what he does? That's none of your business. It's very much my business. My husband worked for June's family. Worked for them for 20 years. And when he tried to leave, when he wanted out, they didn't let him go. They just made him disappear. Hannah's throat went dry. I think you have the wrong person. I don't. The woman stood up, leaving the Americano untouched. And I hope, for your sake, that you're smarter than my husband was. She left. Hannah stood there, holding an empty tray, feeling the weight of something she couldn't name. That night, Hannah didn't wait for June to show up. She went looking for him. She knew where he lived. He'd never told her, but she'd followed him once, months ago, out of curiosity more than anything else. It was an apartment in Gangnam, the kind of building with a doorman and security cameras and floors so high you could see the entire city. The doorman recognized her. That should have been strange, but it wasn't. It was terrifying. He let her up without asking questions. June answered the door in a t-shirt and sweatpants, looking more surprised than she'd ever seen him. "Hannah, what do you do?" she asked. He went still. "What?" "Your job. Your work. The thing you won't talk about. What is it?" For a long moment, June just looked at her. Then he stepped aside. "Come in." His apartment was almost empty. Minimal furniture. No pictures on the walls. It looked like a place someone stayed but didn't live. June sat down on the couch. Hannah stayed standing. "I'm not a businessman," he said quietly. "I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't have a startup or a consulting firm or whatever story you've been telling yourself." "Then what are you?" "My family controls things. Money, influence, territory. We're not the biggest, but we're careful. Methodical. We don't make noise. We just exist in the spaces where the law isn't looking." Hannah felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. "You're telling me you're part of organized crime. I'm telling you I was born into it. That my father did it. That my uncle did it. That I never had a choice about whether I wanted in or out. Everyone has a choice. Do they?" June looked at her. "My cousin tried to leave. I told you about him. I sent him to collect a debt, and he used it as cover to disappear. And they found him anyway. Not my people. The other side. They found him and they made him an example. You could have looked for him. I thought about it. Every day. But if I'd gone looking, it would have started a war. And wars mean bodies. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. So you did nothing. I did the math." His voice was flat. "One life or 100. I chose 100. Hannah felt sick. "And you thought you could drag me into this? You thought you could just show up at my apartment and sit on my couch and let me fall for you without telling me any of this?" "No." June stood up. "I thought I could keep you separate. I thought if I never brought you into that world, if I never introduced you to anyone or let anyone know you mattered, I could have one thing that was just mine. I'm not a thing. I know." He took a step toward her. "And that's why this was always going to end badly." Hannah left that night. She walked out of June's apartment, took the elevator down 43 floors, and walked home through streets that suddenly felt unfamiliar. She told herself she was done, that she'd dodged something dangerous, that she'd cut ties before things got worse. But 2 days later, she received a package. It was waiting outside her apartment door when she got home from class. Brown paper, no return address, tied with string like something out of another era. Inside was a book, 100 Years of Solitude. She'd mentioned it once in passing months ago, how she tried to read it in English but wanted to try it in the original Spanish someday. There was a note tucked inside the front cover. "You said you wanted to read it in Spanish. This is the only translation that matters. The rest are just echoes." It was signed with a single letter, J. Hannah sat on her floor, holding the book, and realized with horrible clarity that she wasn't done at all. The gifts kept coming. Not flowers. Not jewelry. Nothing obvious or romantic. A playlist appeared in her Spotify. Songs she'd listened to once months ago, arranged in an order that somehow made sense. She never told June her account name. A scarf showed up at the café. The exact shade of green she'd been looking at online but never bought. A book she'd added to her cart but deleted because it was too expensive. First, Hannah thought it was June. Some strange apology. Some way of staying connected without actually talking. Then she realized the timing was wrong. The gifts arrived when June was out of the country. She knew because he'd texted her once. A simple message. In Tokyo for work. Back Friday. The scarf had arrived on Wednesday. Hannah's blood went cold. She called June. He answered on the first ring. Someone's been sending me things, she said. Silence. June. What kind of things? Books. Playlist. A scarf I almost bought online. More silence. Then quietly. Pack a bag. What? Pack a bag. I'm sending someone to get you. Don't go anywhere alone. Don't talk to anyone you don't know. Don't use your credit card. June, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. The line went dead. 20 minutes later, a car pulled up outside Hannah's building. The driver was a woman in her 30s, professional, calm. She didn't introduce herself. June sent me, was all she said. Hannah got in. They drove to an apartment on the other side of the city. It was smaller than June's place, but just as empty. The woman handed her a key and a phone. This number only calls June. Don't use your old phone. Don't contact anyone from your old life. Someone will bring you groceries. Don't leave unless June says it's safe. How long? I don't know. The woman left. Hannah stood in the empty apartment, holding a phone that only called one person, and understood for the first time that she wasn't just involved anymore. She was leverage. June came back 2 days later. He looked worse than she'd ever seen him. Exhausted. Wired. Like he hadn't slept since their phone call. It's handled, he said. What does that mean? It means they won't come near you again. Who's they? June sat down heavily. People who want me to make mistakes. People who know that if they can get to you, they can get to me. So this is about you. It was always about me. He looked at her. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I thought I could have this. Have you? Without consequences. Hannah sat down across from him. Who sent the gifts? My cousin's people. The ones who think I didn't do enough to find him. They wanted me to know they could reach you whenever they wanted. And now they know that if they touch you, I'll burn everything down. There's mine. All of it. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're enjoying this. Hannah felt something twist in her chest. Not fear. Not anger. Something worse. You'd start a war for me. I'd end the world for you. It should have been romantic. But all Hannah could think was that she'd become the thing she'd always been afraid of. Someone else's reason to destroy everything. She stayed in the apartment for 3 weeks. June visited every few days, bringing food, staying for a few hours, leaving before she could ask him not to go. And Hannah started to notice something. She was comfortable. Not happy, but comfortable. Safe. Taken care of. She didn't have to think about rent or bills or what she was doing with her life. She just had to exist in this small, controlled space while someone else handled everything. And that terrified her more than any threat. Because she was starting to understand what June had meant when he said he didn't know who he'd be without his life. She was starting to lose track of who she was without hers. On the 22nd day, Hannah made a decision. She used the phone to call June. I need to meet them. No, I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you, I need to meet the people who are doing this. Hannah, that's insane. More insane than hiding in an apartment for the rest of my life? Silence. Set it up, she said. Or I'll find them myself. 3 days later, Hannah sat in a park in Hannum, surrounded by families and couples and people living normal lives. A man sat down next to her. He was younger than she expected. Maybe 30. Polite. Almost apologetic. You shouldn't have asked for this meeting, he said. And yet here we are. He smiled slightly. You're braver than I expected. Or stupider. Maybe both. He leaned back. Do you know why we sent you those gifts? To scare me. To show June that we know you. That we see you. that we could take you away from him whenever we want. And now we're curious, because you're not running. You're not hiding behind June. You're sitting here, talking to me, like you have leverage. Hannah's heart was pounding, but she kept her voice steady. What if I told you I'd leave on my own? That I'd walk away from June and never see him again? The man considered this. That would be worse for him. Why? Because then he'd know he couldn't protect you, that he failed. And a man like June who thinks he's failed? He becomes reckless. Hannah understood immediately. They didn't want to hurt her. They wanted June to break himself. So what do I do? She asked. The man stood up. That's not my problem. But I'll tell you this. As long as you're connected to June, you're useful to us. The moment you're not, you stop mattering entirely. He walked away. Hannah sat there, watching families play in the grass, and realized she'd just been given the answer to a question she'd never wanted to ask. She could become someone they couldn't use, or she could disappear. Both options meant losing herself. When Hannah told June about the meeting, he looked at her like she'd just signed her own death warrant. They won't let you go now, he said quietly. Then what do I do? June didn't answer right away. Then he said, you become someone they can't use. Over the next 2 months, that's exactly what happened. June introduced her to people in his world. Not as his girlfriend, as someone independent, someone with her own connections, her own value. She translated documents. She attended meetings. She learned names and faces and the invisible architecture of power. And slowly, she stopped being just June's vulnerability. She became someone who mattered on her own terms. It worked, but it also changed her. Hannah stopped being the translator who wanted a quiet life. She stopped being the girl who made coffee and dreamed about building bridges between people with words. She became someone who understood power, who knew how to navigate rooms full of people who'd never face consequences for their actions, who could smile at someone while calculating exactly how much leverage they had. She survived, but she wasn't sure she recognized the person who survived. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. Hannah was at a meeting in a restaurant in Cheongdam, the kind of place where reservations took months and the waiters knew not to ask questions. She was translating for a conversation between June and a business partner. Except it wasn't really business. It was territory. It was influence. It was the polite language of people negotiating over things they'd never admit in public. And halfway through, Hannah realized she wasn't horrified anymore. She was bored. She'd become fluent in this language, comfortable with it. It was just another translation, just another set of words that meant something different than what they said. That night, she went home to the apartment June had moved her to, the safe one, the expensive one, the one that didn't feel like hers. She looked around at the furniture she hadn't chosen and the walls she hadn't painted and the life she hadn't built, and she understood. She'd escaped being leveraged by becoming complicit. She'd saved herself by losing herself. The conversation happened in the same cafe where they'd met. June sat across from her, and for the first time since she'd known him, he looked tired. Actually tired. Not wired or controlled or performing calm. Just exhausted. You're free, he said. They won't come after you anymore. Because of you? Because of you. You made yourself irrelevant to them. You're not leverage anymore. Hannah understood. By becoming part of his world, she'd stopped being a weapon they could use against him. But she'd also stopped being herself. She stood up. June didn't stop her. As she walked toward the door, he said, "If you ever need me." She turned back. "I won't." It wasn't cruel. It wasn't angry. It was just true. Hannah left Seoul 2 weeks later. She moved to a smaller city in the south. She got a job at a translation agency. Nothing glamorous. Nothing exciting. Just normal work for normal pay in a normal life. She rebuilt herself slowly. Different apartment, different routine, different version of who she was. She never saw June again, but she heard about him. Enough to know he survived. Enough to know he never let anyone close again. And she wondered sometimes if that had been his plan all along. To show her exactly what love looked like in his world. And trust that she'd be smart enough to leave. 6 months after Hannah left, a package arrived at her door. Brown paper. No return address. Tied with string. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a USB drive and a note. The handwriting was June's. She'd recognize it anywhere. He wrote the way he talked. Careful. Economical. Like every word cost something. The note said, "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking you to decide what happens next." Hannah stared at it for a long time. Then she plugged the drive into her laptop. The files loaded slowly. Financial records. Wire transfers. Names she recognized from news articles. Police reports that were never filed. Photographs of meetings that never officially happened. Audio recordings of conversations that could dismantle an entire network. And at the bottom of the folder, a video file. It was labeled, "For Hannah." She clicked it. June appeared on screen. He was in an empty room. Concrete walls. Single light bulb. The kind of place that doesn't exist on any map. He looked tired. Not defeated. Just tired. He said, "You were right. I couldn't leave. But I made sure no one else would have to stay. This is everything. Everyone who's trapped. Everyone who's complicit. Everyone who thought they were safe because they were useful." He paused. Looked directly at the camera. Her. "If you release this, it ends. The organization. The families. The whole structure. It collapses." Another pause. "But it won't just destroy them. It'll destroy everyone connected to them. The legitimate businesses. The people who didn't know what they were working for. The families who thought their parents were just entrepreneurs. Hundreds of people. Maybe thousands." He leaned back. The light made shadows under his eyes. "You told me once that you wanted to translate because you believed words could build bridges between people. That understanding could change things. So I'm giving you the words. All of them. Every truth I've been hiding." He was quiet for a moment. "But I need you to understand something. This isn't justice. It's demolition. And I don't know anymore if there's a difference." The video ended. Hannah sat in the blue glow of her laptop screen, the cursor hovering over the file. She didn't move for a long time. She thought about the woman in the cafe. The one whose husband had disappeared. She thought about June's cousin, who tried to leave and paid for it with his life. She thought about all the people whose names were in these files. The ones who'd chosen this life and the ones who'd been born into it. She thought about justice, about revenge, about the difference between destroying a system and destroying the people trapped inside it. She thought about June, sitting in that empty room, giving her the power to end everything he'd ever known. And she realized this wasn't a gift. It was a test, or maybe a trap, because if she used this, she'd be making the same choice he'd made his entire life, deciding who deserved to be collateral damage. Hannah closed the laptop. She walked to the window. The city below was alive. Lights, cars, people living lives that had nothing to do with any of this. She picked up her phone, opened her contacts, scrolled to a name she hadn't called in 6 months. Her finger hovered over the call button. Outside, someone laughed. A child shouted something. A car horn blared. Normal life, the kind she'd been trying so hard to build. Hannah looked at her phone, then at the laptop, then back at her phone, and realized something. June once told her he couldn't leave because he didn't know who he'd be without his world. Now she understood, because she didn't know who she was with this choice, and she didn't know who she'd be after she made it. But she knew one thing. The moment you give someone the power to destroy you, you've already lost control of your own ending. The only question is whether you take them with you. Hannah's finger stayed on the screen. The phone stayed silent. The laptop stayed closed. And outside, the city kept moving. The way it always had. The way it always would. Whether she made the call or not. If someone you loved gave you the power to destroy everything they built, and everyone connected to it, would you use it? Is that justice or just revenge with better branding? Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more stories. Also like and share. I want to hear all you have to say about Hannah and June in the comment section.